Zhou-Castro is at a watch party in the crucial swing state of Wisconsin. She's going to be gauging reaction from voters. Alan Fisher is in Atlanta, where that presidential debate is taking place. First, here's his report on why this debate matters. In fact, let's move across to Alan live now in Atlanta. Alan, there's a lot of focus, of course, on the messages that are going to be sent in this debate, but also, of course, a lot of focus on the performances as well.
Look, this could be a political death match. If one of them really makes a mess of this debate, it could be the end of their presidential campaign. People really, their support for either candidate is kind of baked in, and there are undecideds who will be watching this, wanting to see who is going to perform the best. Does anyone not meet the mark? Is anyone not presidential? Remember, debates are normally where the candidates introduce themselves to the country. There can't be two more candidates who are better known than Joe Biden and Donald Trump, who are actually walking onto the stage in Atlanta now. They will attack each other. We expect that. But most Americans want to know, how are they going to make things better? Inflation is crippling many families. How are they going to handle that? How are they going to lower the cost of healthcare? How are they going to deal with the everyday issues that families have to deal with? Now, they can shout at each other and call each other names when they have the microphone. And remember, the moderators have the chance to mute them. But really, America wants to see two people who can perhaps present a vision of moving beyond the divisions that have roiled America over the last 10, 12 years.
Alan, there are so many different subjects that both men could target the other for, and so many problems that they would, and allegations that they could make. Just briefly, can you narrow it down for us? Is this predominantly about the economy? Are there other issues that are going to be key in this?
Well, they'll talk about the Ukraine war, they'll talk about Israel and the war on Gaza as well, but they will talk about inflation, they'll talk about unemployment too. But it will come down to a degree about character, and Joe Biden will go on the attack about Donald Trump essentially encouraging the attacks on January the 6th. Will Donald Trump talk about pardoning all those who were involved? Donald Trump will attack Joe Biden on the border. What's he doing to stop undocumented migrants coming across the border and committing crimes, committing murders? They are both areas that both are vulnerable to. It will depend on who performs best. Now, it might well be a stalemate. They might cancel each other out. But we know that both men think that getting momentum from this debate will be important, even though we're 5 months away from the big vote on November the 5th.
Alan, thanks very much indeed. That's Alan Fisher talking to us from Atlanta, where that debate's taking place. We're going to go to Heidi Zhou-Castro in Kenosha. She's in the swing state of Wisconsin. And of course, Wisconsin, one of the key elements of the run-up to the election that could actually make a big difference in the eventual result of that election. But as Alan was pointing out, people are just more concerned about how their lives are going to be changed by whoever gets into the White House.
Absolutely. And this watch party that I'm standing outside of, Rob, is a really unique and special one, because not only are we in this very purple county of a purple state, but this watch party was put together by a group that seeks to bring together people from across the divide. So we have about evenly divided crowd behind me, as well as independents in the middle. And I want to talk to some of these voters, bring their voices in. And we have Lucas Rice here. You're a young voter who identifies as a Democrat. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for having me.
Tell me about your thoughts as this presidential debate is kicking off. We've obviously had Biden in the White House. We've had Trump in the White House as well. What more do you need to learn from them to help make an informed decision?
Sure. So a lot of people right now are obviously having concerns about Israel-Palestine. I know that's a lot of the coverage y'all do. Roe v. Wade is fresh off everybody's mind. So I'm really looking forward to, we have in this chapel, as you mentioned, we have Democrats, Republicans, and in intermittent breaks, we're all meeting together and having conversations about the answers that the candidates gave. So I'm interested in, while I'm interested in hearing Biden and Trump's responses, I'm interested in hearing the American voters' responses and sort of where we can agree and where we still disagree.
What are the top issues for you?
For me, it's going to be political depolarization. I do all of this work to bring people together. So I'm very interested, again, in hearing everybody's mindset and how they're feeling about this upcoming election. A hot button topic is going to be Israel-Palestine. Immigration is going to be a really big one. I'm from South Texas, so that's going to be a big one to me, which impacts my local and state government. I'm interested in the differences that are going to be shared between Donald Trump and Biden.
Yeah. And, looking at the polling numbers, many are saying that Biden may be in a bit of trouble, especially with younger voters who are disenchanted over the Israel-Gaza issue. Do you think that's going to be detrimental to his campaign?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a majority of young voters who are already going to be a little bit less likely to vote. I'm hoping that some of the student loan forgiveness will aid him a little bit. On the flip side, we know that Trump is going to be probably more heavy-handed on the Israel-Palestine issue. He's going to be more pro-Israel leaning. He moved the embassy to Jerusalem. So between the two of them, I'm going to say that Biden, even if you are against his actions that he's taken in support of Israel, I think that he's going to be the better candidate between the two. If you are feeling like there's very big injustices happening to those in Palestine. But I'm curious for those who are not supporting Biden because of the Israel-Palestine. I'm curious to how they're going to feel about Donald Trump's responses tonight.
Yeah, curiosity seems to be really motivating people in there because, like you said, people want to hear from each other even when they disagree.
Absolutely.
But that is not something we see from many Americans. It's so polarized. So what makes this so important for you guys as a group to try to start this conversation in a respectful manner?
So the debate that's going to be going on tonight between Trump and Biden is going to be them appealing to the American public. I think that it was Biden that said specifically in the last presidential debate 4 years ago, he said, "I'm talking to you, the American people." The debates that I do are talking to one another. Having a conversation with an individual person. So I think that if we have more things like what's going on in this chapel, where instead of listening to what Donald Trump has to say or listening to what Biden has to say, if we can listen to one another, I think that we may find out that we have a lot more common ground than we originally believed.
Lucas, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And of course, all that action is happening right now. There are more than 1,000 people filling the pews watching this from all those angles. And afterwards, they are going to debate amongst themselves. And we get to be the lucky wallflowers that are listening to what they have to say. Rob.
Heidi, thank you very much indeed. We're going to be checking in with you, of course, as the debate goes on. It's going to be lasting for about 90 minutes. For now, thank you very much indeed. Steve Clemons is the host of Al Jazeera's show, The Bottom Line. He's joining us live from Washington, D.C. Steve, great to have you with us. You've got so much experience in and around Washington, D.C., in the politics and the backroom stuff that goes on. I want to ask you about, following up from what Heidi's guest Lucas was saying, there are so many things that people want to hear about, but is anybody actually going to hear anything new from this debate?
I really don't think they're going to hear anything expected from either candidate. What people are going to be watching for tonight is their behavior. Is Donald Trump going to behave so outrageously, so intemperate, be intemperate and pugnacious that he makes independents nervous? That's one question. Is Joe Biden going to have a grasp of detail and communication and himself in such a way that those who doubt him, not because of his experience or even his views, but they worry about his age. Age is the biggest issue for Joe Biden. And if he, I spent a lot of time with Republicans and Democrats. What's interesting is the Republicans want to see a slightly more mellow Donald Trump. He doesn't have to win the nomination anymore. He's got to run to the middle, but he keeps failing to do so. And those people close to Joe Biden who believe in him strongly, believe in the Democratic Party and the accomplishments that it has had, just worry about Biden being wobbly and seeming as if he's not the right guy for this moment. So that's what's at stake tonight. It's not just issues, it's performance.
Steve, we're getting a little bit of breakup in your signal there, but we are going to persevere with it because I really want to get your thoughts on this. In terms of the performance, as you say, there's a lot of speculation about how Donald Trump is going to behave, particularly in this. It's a very different kind of debate, though, to the previous one back in 2020, isn't it? Because mics are going to be switched off. There is no audience. Dana Bash and Jake Tapper from CNN, very experienced Washington hands, very experienced in dealing with this kind of adjudication. How is that going to shape the debate, do you think? And do you think that that is also going to show Donald Trump almost in a false light, as it were, because he is so constrained by those restrictions?
I think many of us are waiting to see, how does Donald Trump take someone that turns off his mic, and how will he behave? Will he accept it? Will he stand there? Will he yell or bellow? We just don't know. We've never seen a debate like this where mics were turned off, where there was no audience to play to, because Donald Trump is a performer, someone who connects with people who are out there. And so it's going to be interesting. The true answer is we don't know how this will go, but this is a president of the United States debating a former president of the United States. Neither one of these people like to be managed or controlled by moderators, by people pulling their plug, or by their own attendant. So when you see what they're going to do, I imagine we're going to see another level of performance, given the silencing constraints that may be much more physical, at least for Donald Trump, much more physical communication, because the cameras aren't going to be turned off. They will still be going regardless of whether the mic is going.
There are so many different points on both sides where the opponent could try to strike a hit, if you like, in debating terms. But one of the things that young man Lucas was referring to was, of course, Israel's war in Gaza and the unrest that has created in the United States. Just give us some context, Steve. How much do you think that kind of thing, that foreign policy element, is going to play into how people begin to consider their voting as they go forward?
Look, I think it's a big deal, and it's a bigger Achilles heel, a soft point for Joe Biden, who's in office now and responding, than for Donald Trump. It's a real problem because two of the communities that put Joe Biden into office overwhelmingly were the American Black community and the youth that came out in big numbers for Joe Biden before. Today, a substantial number of youth are very alienated by the foreign policy, the Cold War mindset of some of the leaders of the Democratic Party right now, and the perception that he care about Palestinians or Gazans as much as he cares about Israelis. And this is turned into, as opposed to a Middle East politics question for many young Americans in young days. The same thing is true for the Black community that also may not be tuned into what's ethical or right after the October 7th attack in Israel and the response. But the death of 40,000 people to them reminds them of themselves being demeaned, harassed, killed, jailed. And it's turned into an identity issue and an issue. And that's before you get to Michigan, where there's a very large Arab American community that's also disaffected. So much of this is important, and it's important in battleground states where Joe Biden just simply can't afford a percent or two in this conflict. So this may be the first presidential race that I can remember that foreign policy made a determining factor potentially in the outcome.
Steve, we appreciate it. Obviously, we're going to be coming back to you to get more from you as the debate goes on. But for now, Steve Clemons, thank you very much indeed.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.